Gentlemen, welcome to the regular meeting for Wednesday, April the 18th. And we would request that all of you please silence your cell phones, including board members and staff. And if you all could please rise for the invocation and pledge. This evening, Ward Habriel is going to be having our invocation for us.
Father, we just thank you now for drawing us together to do the business of this important water district. We praise you for drawing us together, the public that's here, and the staff, and our board members. We pray, Lord, that you would bring us to the point where we understand what is going on and why it's necessary to happen that way. You've given us so many blessings in this district, and we thank you for those that are coming in the future. And now, Lord, we raise this all to you in your Son's name. Amen.
Amen. Captain, pledge, please.
Salute and pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please. Georgianne.
Here.
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 Okay, number 2, approval of consent calendar. If any of you don't have any questions or any significant changes requested, we'll just take it as one.
I move we approve the consent calendar.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Roll call, please. Oops. Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Dr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Dr. Kellogg?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, item number 3, public participation. Anybody from the audience wish to speak to anything that is not on the agenda? We would love to have you come forward and address us. Please give us your name and address and phone number, social security number. Just kidding. Credit card numbers, yes. Don't
Let me start with a pass up. Thank you. One for each and very well. As you know, I'm one of those few people that actually read the paper. Sorry, Post and ER. But this is the reprint of what the ER published from the Department of Water Resources conservation numbers based on through February. And the highlighted portion indicates that Paradise Irrigation Division, it says, saved 3.5% compared to those other companies there and what the state standard is. And then the last one, that Paradise is using 87 gallons per person per day. Both of those numbers indicate that for all of the districts here in Northern California that are reporting to DWR, we're the worst. I know this conflicts with what you have published on page 25 of your packet. And I think that because these are the numbers that are showing up in the newspaper, these are the numbers that the public sees, these are the numbers that people are assuming we're doing a very bad job. And yet what you have on page 25, based on the numbers produced by PID and how that is calculated, is an absolutely incredible difference. It's over 30% conservation based on those numbers, and this is just barely 3.5. Somehow or another, the information to the public based on what's in the paper is either wrong or PID's numbers are wrong. Somehow or another, I think that needs to be straightened out. Next topic. Since I have worked as an environmental educator, a lot of the times for what we did to make a point was to use resources that were based on the material we were lecturing or discussing. Many of those resources were the writings of Lester R. Brown, in one of his most famous books I have here. He's a distinguished researcher, author, 30-plus year leader of the World Watch Institute, and founder of the Earth Policy Institute. Much of his findings in subsequent books and articles simply mirror the Bible in noting that what man is responsible for are the people, places, and things that God has given us. He has summarized over and over how man's management of our environment and economy leads us down a path of no return. I'm not talking about becoming a blue zone here. It's just that there are a lot of similarities. She'd like that. Most of the issues that man can control but have not been, or at least not managed very well, all include resource conservation, the most critical of which is water. His multi-years research culminating at the turn of the century is coming true here 20 years later. His summary has 2 significant points. First, we've not prepared for or provided education requiring conservation of our resources. And secondly, the mismanagement of the western United States forests for over a century. We are still a wasteful nation, and without direction established by leadership, elected or appointed, and legislation to control man's behavior, Lester Brown says we cannot afford the environment we need for our continued existence. And my last topic. The transparency word has gone around virtually all of Paradise agencies except Parks and Rec, who seems to be doing well, for many months, if not years. And lately, the town has repeated how they are becoming more transparent nearly every meeting, and the school board has been more open about their issues way more than ever before. However, there are some people that feel PID management and the board have not been straightforward with the public on a number of issues. Some folks watching here, some that read the paper, and there are some that have just given up. You can be praised for getting these meetings over before midnight, which I personally appreciate, and keeping the contentiousness to a minimum. But are you resolving interests in the best interest of the people or your own best interests? Orville has just announced that the 10% salary reductions planned for over 2 years ago have not had the impact on costs as expected. They will now consider what the town of Paradise did several years ago, close city services 1 day per week. Public agencies need to look at all activities that they manage in their budgets and see how many different ways some expenses could be cut. Thank you very much for your time.
Ward, I've got a question for you. I too noticed that when I read that article, I thought, wow, 3.5, because I thought back in the conservation times when we were pushing it hot and heavy, it was clear up in the 30%. What happened?
I can speak
Ask
to that.
DWR. These are the numbers published by them. And frankly, that's what bothers me. I know, because I'm here and I pay attention, I know we're better than that. But what the public is seeing in the newspaper frightens me. And it frightens me that DWR would have this published. How do we fix it?
Well,
it's not up to me. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry.
I may be wrong on this, but the percent reduction in Jim's report is always based on the 2013 usage, right, which is 34%. This article was based on last year's usage to this year, I believe.
So
that's the difference.
So we need to look at how do people read these things when we know, in fact, what we're really doing is so much better.
Yeah.
I was
the
hoping
state requires us to look at compared to 2013 when the drought first began.
That's
so
the baseline
I think
here.
that might be the
Well,
difference.
then last year to
But
this
you're
year,
certainly
if it's
correct
3,
that we're not doing as well as we were when we had a mandatory restriction of 36% during the drought.
Correct. And
certainly.
we don't have Amanda Hovick sitting here saying, hey, somebody got up and said the numbers are all wrong. They really should be. How do we fix this? That's my point. Thank you very much for your time.
I think we probably start by responsible reporting, because I am embarrassed to even say that I read the Paradise Post or the News and Review or the Chico Enterprise Record, because I've never in my life seen such irresponsible reporting as I've seen by our newspapers in these communities, and it doesn't surprise me that we're growing hops.
Director Jacobson, there are many people that echo your statements.
Yeah.
Yes.
But sadly, if you complain, they just write another article that makes it even sound worse. So what do? You just leave it alone.
I was kind of hoping that you and I were the only ones that read this.
No.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Ward.
Anyone else? Okay, number 4, staff and billing report. Oops, I'm sorry.
Mr. President, I just want to inform you that we do have public here for item 10F on the agenda.
I had already asked approval of everybody except Mark to
We're going
pull.
to swap it around.
Perfect. I just wanted to let you know that. I was obviously.
Yeah, you were out, and so I couldn't talk to you about it.
Thank you.
Okay, number 4, Kevin.
Staff and billing reports. Do you have
Yes.
staff and billing reports? Any questions?
I do have a correction. I think it's on page 25.
And Keith and Jim are here to answer any questions for you guys if you had questions built up from prior meetings too.
Let's see.
I had a question. How is that whole leak detection thing going? But are we going to be getting a report from Jim later when you talk about other things?
Yeah,
Because I'd like to hear some specifics on it.
yeah, and it will be more in next month's staff report. Because
Okay.
we started at the end of last month,
Uh-huh.
and we're kind of knee deep in it as we speak, Dan. So it'd be better wait for one more report.
We will patiently wait. Thank you.
It's good news. Well, on one hand,
It's good news that it's working, bad news that we're finding leaks. So.
well, yeah, there's always pros and cons to everything.
Anyway, just the average plant production should be 2.2, not 2.6. If the range is 1.8 to 2.5, you couldn't have an average of 2.6.
Got it.
But also, I wanted to just comment on, and I think it's in here, but he also addressed it in his staff report, the NPDES letter. I was just really pleased with that whole
And I'll give you
package.
more. I'll give you more update on that
Yeah.
in my
Kudos.
report. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. That's all I have.
Bill.
On page 24, it gives fire replacements 2018. How many hours is spent on this? We get a number of meter or replacements that have taken place. 1 month there was almost 600 last in February, in March 210. But how much time is it taking of our crews, field crews, to do this work? And I'd like to know about that and some idea of the cost involved in it.
Yeah, we're working on getting those numbers. We heard you last board meeting, so we're working on getting those numbers to you to figure out labor costs associated with the replacement of those.
Okay, thank you.
Safe to say that we don't have crews on it, right? We have one or two individuals.
And we're trying to get a lot of these replaced during this winter time, because we know that as summer comes along, these guys are going to be caught up doing pipe crew. So we've tried to really push to get a lot of these replaced during this time to make sure that the system's sound for the summertime.
Any more, Bill?
No, that was it.
Cliff?
Mark, I've got one. How'd the system flushing go last month? Did that go okay?
Oh, well.
Good.
Yeah,
I didn't hear any complaints or anything, so that's
really nice.
good.
Yeah, the guy's got a good handle.
Yeah, and it didn't take, as long as we're able to do it yearly, the condition is much better, so it isn't quite as time consuming. You still have to spend time.
Right.
But it went well.
Good. Good. Appreciate that.
We didn't hear any complaints either. So.
Tell the crews, good job. Thank you.
I did have one more comment. It's not really in your reports, but I think several months ago I said, what happened to the solar, the gentleman that talked to us about the solar? Is that still coming forward? Is that still in the works somewhere?
Yeah.
Okay.
I kind of let him know that we had a lot in the hopper at that point. So he has our data, and we just need to schedule a time to sit down with him. I've been in contact with him, so we're working on getting the time. But I'll follow back up with him now and see if he's ready to present some of the data to us. But yes, we are still working. It's Schneider Electric or Schneider somebody or other. But that's who we're working with. So yeah, Mark Kindleberger.
I guess I may have something else to ask about. Trying to figure out where it belongs. The thing on NPDES permit in the memorandum from the agency that works on an NPDES permit.
Regional board.
Huh?
Regional board.
Yeah. Is that in this report or?
It's in my report.
Okay, then I'll wait till then.
It's in Bill's or Jim's too.
Oh, the memo in there. It is okay. So it is in there. I can discuss it in my report. I can discuss it now on that.
Why don't we take it all at one time?
Okay, then let's just wait.
Yeah?
I did have another question.
Oh, sure.
I didn't know why it was there. I didn't know if it was in the right
I had a
place.
few on 52 maybe too.
Yeah, I forgot one from Neil's report. It says the very last sentence of the last paragraph, staff continued work on the solar interconnection agreement in order to grandfather the time of use rate structure. Could you explain what that means?
Yeah, so a bill came out that if you didn't put in somewhat of an like you had to put some type of agreement in place that says you are thinking about going into solar, then you wouldn't be grandfathered into the prior rates that were more advantageous than if you did that. So what we did was we just put it in thinking, well, we might as well put it in case we have the opportunity to put solar in before that time period.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Where are we here? 4B then, to continue.
And can I just, on this news report, if you go to your, what page is this? Page 49. They're going from, they are doing February 2013 to February 2018. But what I want to point out is that our February to February numbers are always low. Always low. Yeah. They're never. There's no outdoor use during those time periods. Our biggest savings that we get, and that's where the discrepancy between our savings versus their savings is, we're not going month to month. We're going year to year. We're going based off of a calendar year or a 12-month rolling period of conservation. So our conservation comes from the summer months, the Junes, the Julys, and those. Most of our February usage is indoor usage. So you're not going to find that huge conservation numbers that we're looking for. So it was 3% if you look at 2013 February to 2013. But look at March. Our numbers are going to look really good in March. If you take 2013 March, you get 101. This is just production. This is where those numbers come from. Versus 67. Did we conserve a lot? Were we out there conserving? No, the weather conserved for us. It rained. You know, so some of the numbers that you're seeing can be skewed in different directions, and so I just kind of wanted to point that out to you guys so you had a good understanding of that.
I wonder how theirs could possibly be 17.5% when they must be using a different.
They're using the fake news angle.
Oh, is that? Yeah.
And their lots are smaller over there. There's not so much. You know, you're getting less. Acreage in that area, and their rates are extremely high, and they've gone up extremely sharp between 2013 and 2018. So people probably did conserve because they had to for their pocketbook. So
there you are. If we had a reporter here to tell us that.
I do have a question. Calculating the average in the bottom box there, 5-year average. Are you adding 21, 81, 17, 15, 14, 77, 14,
it's a 6-year average.
6 and 2008 and dividing by 5?
No, it's a 6-year average.
It'd be way more than 229.
It's a 6-year average.
Okay. If you add 2153, 2181, 1750, and 6 of those and divide by 6, don't you get more than 229 when most of them are well over 1,000? And then the column below, 331, 328, 353, 350, you add all those together and divide by 6, you get way more than an average of 80.
Yeah.
Correct?
His average is off on that.
Yeah, you're right.
I'll have him change that.
Thanks.
Thank you for noticing it.
I'll tell you.
Troublemaker.
You must have been having it.
Your eyesight's pretty good.
Yeah, for an old man. Huh?
I can tell you what he's doing, and this is what he's doing. He's adding this column right here. This column right here is being added right here.
Down there.
Yep, it would be 230.
He's adding this column
Dropping
here
it
to
down.
here.
It's not
so,
coming across.
So it's not coming this way. It's coming this way.
Yeah.
That's what he's doing.
Excel's
Huh? I know, exactly. That's what it is.
Anyway, 4B.
It's a point of view, Ward.
So are we going to make a motion?
Well, we can take them separately, or do you want it?
Yeah. I move that we accept the staff and billing reports.
I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
4B. Kevin?
You just did it. You just did it combined.
We just did 4B.
Oh.
Staff and billing reports.
Yeah, we did together.
Well, I thought you wanted to split it. I'm sorry. Hopefully nobody had any questions on 4B.
We can still answer them if you do. Okay. Do you want to go to the district manager report now, or do you want to skip around?
We can.
It's up to you.
Well, wait a second. I thought that was for 4A. Do any of you have questions on 4B? No. Okay, then we can go to 5.
Okay. So you have my written reports. Some of the things that we're working on, the water rights, that's been written about in the paper twice. And I'm not sure if the information that I'm trying to pass on is getting through. The water rights EIR, the notice to proceed was out, notice of intent, I think NOI, was issued. The project description, if you guys remember, we were extending the 2 permits during that time period. Mm-hmm. We did hire an environmental engineer. That environmental engineer did go out and do a tremendous amount of biological studies. That report was then issued to the Department of Water Resources. They basically had no staff to work on it at that time because they were dealing with the drought. During that time period with Paula Whalen, we decided to not extend that 271 permit. We decided to go to license on that permit. But it all slowed way down. Everything slowed way down because we were dealing with the drought also. And we had no communication back from the water board. So, and I believe April or May of last year, last year, we contacted the water board to restart the process. We met with them face-to-face with our water rights engineer and de novo planning, who is the environmental engineer, to talk about reissuing the EIR. We felt it was appropriate to do another notice of intent with the new project description, and the environmental engineer was given direction to, once that was published, to then take comments back from the environmental community to see if the studies that we had already done will still be suffice. So that's where we're at with that. Inside that EIR is a sphere of influence change. And that came about because when we were trying to do this in 2007, right when I actually started. We were trying to do a sphere change because LAFCO was really pushing us to expand our sphere of influence boundaries. During that time period, Walmart was trying to come into Paradise. And with that sphere change was going to incorporate that piece of land that they were trying to come into effect. There was a lot of pushback on the district from environmental, just from the community itself, that there was a lot of pushback for that Walmart project coming in. So, and they were asking for a full EIR to do a sphere change because we were just going to do a negative deck on that. So what we did was we just kind of held off on the sphere knowing that we were going to have to go forward with an EIR. So when we put this EIR together, we incorporated that sphere of influence into that EIR to look at that. So that you have 2 separate projects kind of in one environmental study, because the sphere of influence really has no effect on the water rights itself. It's the place of use change that has effect on the water rights. So you have 2 lines drawn on maps that have 2 different meanings to it, where you have a sphere of influence line and you have a place of use line. And so we're working through both of those, but those are going to be decisions this board's going to have to make, and questions that will have to be asked is, do we want to go forward with the sphere of influence inside of this EIR document, or is it going to muddy up the waters? Do we separate that project out, or do we just wait on that project until we're done with the water rights EIR to see where that goes from? So I just want to kind of give you a brief synopsis of that.
And in regards to that, Kevin, I believe early on this board was given that information, and we were asked for direction on whether we wanted an extension or whether we wanted to go to license.
Correct.
And we made the decision to do that, and all that information was brought forth at that time. We all, I think, hands on their head. We remember doing it.
Agreed to it.
So I was amazed when I read the editorial in the newspaper, part 1 and part 2, and my comment was, what part about stupid don't they understand? Because we fleshed this whole thing out, and you were not even the manager at the time, and had nothing to do with it, and George had nothing to do with it because that information was brought to the board as it should have been, and the board made that decision. So the editorial should have been directed to us, not you. Just want to point that out.
Bill?
As far as I know, I'm the only board member who's ever received a copy of the environmental impact report.
I received a copy.
You have a bound copy?
I asked for one.
Yes, okay, then the problem with the editorial is that they were saying that we hadn't been forthcoming to the public. It's a public document, and a person should come in and be able to get a copy of the copy, even maybe put a cover letter in it explaining that some of it needs to be changed. But I didn't find anything wrong as far as an environmental impact statement. The only thing I found wrong was the opening of it, because it dated it, what the timing was and so forth, the first 4 or 5 pages, which were produced by George. It was his part of the report. So I don't know why we can't go ahead with that thing and edit it a little bit.
Oh, we're going forward with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, for us to be able to provide the public an explanation and a copy of the thing if they want it, there's nothing in there that I could find that would ever upset an environmental group in the report and the detail. It might bore you a little bit because of all the botanical information, but I think that's the best way to get rid of a storm in a teapot, is to make sure that the people down at the ER get a copy of it.
It was provided.
You sent them a copy of it since the article came out?
Before the article came out.
I was just say too, on our website under projects, we also have water rights information with that document.
But that's not a completed EIR yet, anyway.
Right.
So they're asking for a document that technically does not exist yet. It's in process.
It was actually completed at those dates and approved. But it was also proved that we didn't want to go public with it at the time.
Was that a completed EIR?
It's a draft. It's a draft environmental study.
It was never completed.
That's a biological study. It's not an environment. It's a biological study.
Biological.
It's a draft biological study.
Yeah. At any rate, those are the things I remember about it, and I don't have a problem personally with giving anybody from the public that wants a copy of the thing and so forth with maybe a cover letter that said we're revising this because the initial part of it is out of date and we want to decide whether we should continue with that format in it and let everybody have a copy and we go about our business.
There was a copy. Okay.
The only problem that would create is then they wouldn't have anything to write about.
One other small thing, somebody talked to me about it, and correct me if I'm wrong, but just because it's in our sphere doesn't mean we are bound to have to serve. Somebody thought that because it was in the sphere that we were going to have to, if they developed that whole area, we were going to have to put in 50,000 more meters. And I said, no, it has nothing to do with it.
You're exactly right.
No, the only properties we are bound to serve are within the district boundaries.
Yep, PID boundaries.
And that's why you have annexation. So annexation is where the district then has a requirement for that piece of property to come into the district and what they're required to pay.
Right.
I believe, again, correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, but if we don't state that, then we don't have the opportunity to include that in some future date if we wish to entertain that.
So all a sphere is doing is it's drawing a line on a map that says this public agency is this is their boundaries against other public agencies.
Taking a clue.
Right. It's only public agencies. And so that's why you can actually draw a sphere that overlaps private agencies and private or water companies. It's because it's drawing a line on a map of where the public agency would serve. If that place developed, we're the natural provider to that for water, because it's downhill from us. Or whoever the public agency, South Feather Water and Power, is not going to be the one that services that agency.
It's kind of like back when we were kids. I take first dibs.
Exactly.
And that's
exactly. Because if you don't, you're not going to get an opportunity.
That's it.
And the thing to remember too is that 19,000 acre feet flowing through our watershed on an average year, 12,000 acre feet of storage. We're currently only using 5 to 7 to 9. we would definitely have the capacity if we wanted to add something to it. We're losing the water now anyway.
Yep.
So.
Okay.
I think Bill had a question.
Emily, have you seen the environmental, seen that report?
Have I seen the report?
Yeah.
No, I have not. I assume our office saw it at some point.
Dustin
Yeah.
was
Dustin saw it a long time ago and suggested we keep it quiet we iron out some of these things, and I just was hoping that you'd seen it and would have an opinion about it.
I don't think there's anything that's a smoking gun.
Yeah, no, it's still a work in progress. So.
Boat launch.
Yep. I just got an email back from them that their responses back from their attorney about our attorney comments is in the mail, which is kind of surprised me. They didn't email it to me. So I'm waiting for it in the mail. As soon as I get it in the mail, I'm going to call a committee meeting, the ad hoc committee meeting, which I believe was it Anna and Dan?
Yes.
Okay. So expect some type of call to go over those. So that's where we're at currently on that process water recycle project. Okay. So you saw the memo that was prepared by Larry Walker and Waterworks Engineering. They went through a modeling study based on the conditions that we had given them through our testing, our water testing. The biggest thing that we're doing right now to prove out, and I believe it's the DCBM constituent, is we're sampling at a different spot, and we're using a higher level of a sample to prove that there is no background DCBM in the water where we're sampling. So that was one of the big things that we're doing right now. But from all aspects of their ratios that they're going to be asking for, my question was, has the regional board given these ratios before? Is these ratios and dilution credits reasonable? And the answer back was absolutely. And they've seen higher ones than what we're even asking for. So the plume, if you remember, I'll go back and show on that report. The plume is, that green plume is what they feel like we could get. We only need a plume about to there.
Right.
So that's where they're saying, and they're modeling, that we are diluted far enough down where there's not going to be any environmental damage. And so that tells me right there that we're in good shape. And this is our intake. So the person who would be harmed first would be us. And that's how far away the intake to that reservoir is based on that. And we've been taking samples, I believe, right here, and we're now going to take them on the other side of the lake, up where the last inlet of a stream comes into the reservoir. We're taking them right after that. So we have a meeting with the regional board to go over that memo with them, and they have put us on their 2018-2019 schedule for their fiscal year to do the renewal of the MPDS permit.
And I'd like to make a comment about this while we're on this subject right here.
April 26th.
We early on, and I think this whole board and Kevin are responsible in the public, in transparency here. They need to know that when I came on this board, we were looking at $12 to $15 million and rising, for a recycle plan that when we got to the 90% completion on it and looked at it, it was ridiculous and unmanageable. And it was going to be nothing but a big, major, constant, ongoing headache. And a lot of cost above and beyond just the cost of putting that in. Because of what the board decided to do and the direction we gave Kevin and Kevin's work, we have basically saved this district at least $12 million. If this permit is approved and we don't have to build that recycle system, that's fantastic. And
most people that are paying attention know. And then most of the people that elected us, who stood up and worked on the recall, are aware. They're paying attention, they know.
The rest of the people need to know, and the press needs to know, that That's a board and a manager that know how to get the job done.
Remember, if it isn't bleeding, they don't care. So, yeah.
I do, and I want to point that out because it's very noteworthy. It's one of the big issues that was facing this board when I came on it.
You got it.
And it's about to be resolved to the tune of millions of dollars worth of savings, and enough hasn't been said about it. So kudos to all of us.
I have a little different story. It was actually proposed, or I asked at least a couple of years before we came on board, why we couldn't dilute the water, pipe it directly into the lake. And our whole crew of professionals said no.
Water under the bridge, fortunately. Huh?
Yes, I know it's water under the bridge. And so this brings me back to what I really wanted to talk about earlier. This is on page 17 of 22, and it's in the second paragraph, dilution D. It says, any rate, 2.0 to coincide with the calculated aluminum dilution credit.
Where is he?
40 million.
And it's not so scientific, but we did one test that I managed to get through with the whole board, where we ran water down a riparian area out through one of the one of our this is getting embarrassing to me. At any rate, it's one of the little tanks or ponds, there we go, that we ran the water down and tested it when it came out the pipe. It eventually goes into PVC pipe and dropped into the lake. And I asked for a sample to be pulled there, and a sample would be pulled up at the bottom, up at the top. And they were for aluminum and the chemical.
CDBM.
The chemical was gone because of the action going down through the ripples and so forth. It had gone away. But the aluminum had increased 4 times over because it picked it up from the creek, the riparian area, and became stronger. And so the problem with this computer model here, by them, they're saying that it's actually going to go down, but it will only go down if you put it through a pipe. You don't let it go through any riparian area, any rocks or anything. You can do that is break it up or something, because you'll get rid of the DPES. I can't pronounce that.
DCBM.
Yeah, DCBM.
Dichlorobromometh.
Yeah. But the aluminum will increase. So this report, or this study, this model is wrong. And if we go by it and do not watch what we're doing, we'll actually pull samples that are going to be higher in aluminum at the end of the mixing operation.
I believe, Bill, I hear what you're saying, but I believe that it is not what's getting dumped back in. It is the dispersion and the area that they're going to give us credit for dilution of that will end up with a lower number.
Well, I understand the dilution idea of it, but if you're not careful, you're going to pick it up right back out of the soil on the side of the hill. And that's why I make an issue of it, is that please, let's watch what we're doing. Let's not live with a computer model. It wouldn't be the first computer model that's ever failed, I'll tell you that. So that's it.
Back to page 60. I think you were finished with the...
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, processed water recycle. So, again, that's April 26th at the Reading office. That's where we'll be at to kick that off.
I had a question on this report. I don't know what page it would be. Yeah.
Are we back to what Bill was talking about?
Yeah, I'm sorry, on the NPDS. That's okay. Yeah. It was their page 8, I think. But I'm not, because I have it printed out differently. Anyway, I'll just read it. You may not know the answer, and I can probably just call the treatment plant, or maybe Mark knows. It says, water is occasionally withdrawn from Magalia Reservoir for use in the treatment plant, such as when clarifiers are being flushed or when the water from the bypass pipeline is difficult to coagulate. I didn't realize that they were using the Magalia Reservoir for backwashing the clarifiers. Is anyone?
Yeah, I to be honest, I don't know if that's what they have done. That's
That's
their
what it
practice or not.
Okay.
If they continue to pump that up for the clarifiers. That's a good question.
Okay, I'll ask
Yeah.
Jim if it's
Call
okay.
Jim on it, yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
That was all.
That was the question for you.
I think you're finished on 59 and going to 60.
Yeah. BRES design, we talked to them again. During our meeting with the Larry Walker to go over the NPDS, we actually went over the BRES design project too. And we had 3 of our employees, Neil, Bill, and Jim Passanisi, actually went down to a place down by Calistoga area and look at steel bolted tanks. And so what they were able to look at was a steel bolted tank that's
Glass lined?
glass lined.
Right.
That has been in service for 15 years, and then they were able to look at a steel bolted tank that was actually being constructed. So they got to look at 2 steel bolted
Nice.
tanks. They were extremely impressed with the design. They were actually able to talk to one of the contractors that was putting it together, because there were certain questions that we were trying to get answered through the design portion about draining and putting a floor drain in and how that would work. And they were able to get the question answered right there at the construction site.
Neat.
And the interesting part was that they build the steel bolted tank on the ground, and then they crane it up, and then they build the next portion, and they crane it up, and so no one's ever up above. So it's for safety purposes. That's how they build it. It was kind of an interesting thing.
OSHA, huh?
That's right. Yeah. And they feel like the glass lined, they were saying, has a 50 to 60 year life on the interior side. They believe it just based on what they've seen. They were able to look at the one that's been there for 15 years. They see no wear and tear on it. And really the only way a glass line would be damaged would be like
a shatter,
slamming into it or something like that. So we kind of have made a decision to kind of go forward with the steel bolted.
Good.
We're going to look at the different costs between the liners, but I have a feeling we're going to be leaning more towards the glass lined just because of the wear and tear cost. Is just the maintenance cost is just so much less.
If I remember correctly, the initial installation price was negligible almost, wasn't it, too?
It was. Yep. So yeah, it was a really good, well worth trip that they were able to go down there and take a look at that. So they're going forward with that project, and based on that, they were able, if they can get that floor drain in there, that the main pole is out of the floor. They were worried that they were going to lose about that much water on the bottom from a storage capacity, where now you're going to actually get that storage capacity. So it gave us more storage capacity that we were able now to use, just based on getting that question to that answer.
It has nothing to, my question has nothing to do with the tanks. I drove down the Skyway just the other night and noticed in a certain section, it's the highest part, and there's cracks, longitudinal cracks going down the Skyway. They've been patched, filled in, just like the cracks we have at the water treatment plant. And then there was other patches where it looked like they'd been working on pipes or something, or maybe it was just on the road itself. And my concern is somebody talk to the maintenance department of the county or whoever's maintaining the road and ask about the cracks and ask about the patches to see if that land underneath it is subsiding any at all or settling, or slope. It's on the steepest slope sideways too. Is this ground moving and causing the cracks? I don't know. I just observed it, and I'm going, one of the reasons we're trying to put that pipe where it is that we're supposed to be more protected from earthquakes and soil movement. So I think something we should investigate, and can do it through the county with their road department, ask some questions about the maintenance of the road.
I can have our design people on that too.
Well, there'll be a geotech report too.
When they do it.
When we get to that point, Bill. So,
okay. Yeah. They would have to in their final studies, yeah.
The other thing too is with the road easement issues through Skyway and the little Bermuda Triangle by the treatment plant, we haven't had a lot of movement with the county. The county was going to send over their contact with the railroad company, and we haven't seen it. They're also going through the same issue in Chico, so this is coming up more areas. So what we've decided to do is go down the condemnation road, because we don't feel like we're going to get the answer in time to get this easement done, and we feel like we don't want this to hold up the project because we have a short timeline to get these things accomplished, because it's a two-phase approach, and you can't do phase 2 until you have phase 1 done. So we've directed legal to start looking at getting a condemnation, and also they're going to have to look at getting a title specialist on board. We asked some of the local title companies to pull title reports for us, and they basically said no.
So is this cost then is not included in the preliminary, it's over and above?
Yeah, we'll get you cost estimates on this. We haven't got a cost estimate on what the title person, did you get it?
Can I jump in? No.
Sure.
I mean, ideally, if we can get some kind of certainty, sorry, I do this every. If we can get some kind of certainty with regards to ownership, then, it could be a friendly acquisition process. But I think what Kevin is saying is that we want to prepare for the worst and hope for the best. So you're not at the end of the road, and now you have to start another time-consuming process. So,
Molly, what would happen if they don't find the owner and they go through the condemnation procedure and we build, and then after the fact, the owner steps forward and says,
they can't.
Do they have any
recourse? No, they can't. Once the full condemnation is done.
Well, but they have to have notice of it, and so
right.
we have to do our
go through the whole process.
Well, right, but I think Cliff's question is, what if we can't find out who owns it? What if there's uncertainty?
Right.
So we can try the DOE angle, where you publish and you show that you have done your due diligence to try to identify the owner, and you can't.
And if you do all your due diligence and then at a later date they show up and claim it, then they have no right?
Technically, yeah.
I mean, that's the idea. Yes. I mean, I can't promise they won't try to assert a right or show that we, skipped a hoop, but that's the idea.
Isn't the majority owner Union Pacific?
We don't know.
They don't know.
We think.
No.
I know. You don't think so.
We've dealt with this with the town, and we know. We fought with them up and down the trailway, still fighting with them on the trailway. Because even though technically they did, what happened is when the railroad was initially put in, there were a lot of buddies that did, hey, you're my neighbor, you take that, and you can use it forever, but it didn't ever leave the buddies' hands. Or else some of these people themselves, the people that were going out acquiring property, put it in their own name and then told the railroad they could have it. And so it's come back to bite the town on multiple pieces of property up through the town.
We heard that same story.
We did.
Exactly the same story we heard.
So a prescriptive easement, if you've used it openly and notoriously for that period of time, does that apply to a change of use too?
Well, and it depends on who they're using it against, right? Because
Unfortunately,
if they're
with the town, not. Yeah.
acquiring a prescriptive easement against a railroad, I'm not sure they can do that. So it depends on who's, again, the underlining owner. So this thing is just wrought with problems. Maybe we can talk to the town and see what they were able to uncover, if there's any overlapping.
Yeah, talk to Dwight about it sometimes, because they fought that for many years.
But that's exactly what the county said, that,
right.
that these essentially employees for the railroad would go out and acquire it in their name.
Yep.
And then just hang on to it, and the
hang
railroad
on to it forever.
Yeah.
Retirement.
So there's probably somebody in South Carolina that owns it.
What I would like to do with y'all's permission is I'd like to call our county supervisor, because the only thing that I objected to is it says the district will hire I'm thinking no, because the county is the one that principally has that full right-of-way. Our little piece will be 2 feet wide. Theirs is 60 feet wide. So I'm going to make a couple of calls to the county supervisors. And
he doesn't have the right-of-way, right?
The county never got a right-of-way.
No, correct, but I mean they're still.
They have an issue. That's what they
right.
have.
But I'm going to at least call them and talk to them.
The right way would be done.
Yeah.
Whether I can accomplish anything or not.
Okay.
Probably not, but I'm going to try.
So that's where we're at with that project. Spillway investigation. Me and Neil sat down with Jim Taryn. Neil's been just a superstar on this. Both reports have been 80-page reports that he's gone over with a really fine-tooth comb. Given great feedback to them. They weren't well organized. They weren't well. It wasn't a good flowing document, and they realized that after they got Neil's comments back, which they apologized for. So they're actually redoing the the draft reports and to give it back to us so that they read in a flowing manner. We're also going to have a sit down with their expert consultants so that we can ask questions about some of their conclusions that they came up with. And there's quite a few conclusions. There's quite a few if this, then this type conclusions. One of the biggest things for the spillway on Paradise is water intrusion underneath the spillway itself from both sides. So we feel like there might be water intrusion coming up from the hillside, that we have drains that we aren't sure if they're clogged up or not. And then we don't know if there's water intrusion coming from the dam side also. There's issues at the bottom with the flip bucket and some of the draining issues down there. And then we don't know if there's certain issues of in the concrete itself. So what we've instructed Gentera to do is to create a phase 1 with the issues listed and the investigation to find out the answers to those so that the district can go out for an RFP for phase 2 work. Mm-hmm. So that we can go out, because now we're talking about drilling. We're talking about doing major kind of infrastructure kind of stuff that we want to make sure we're getting the best bang for our buck on that. So that we can issue an RFP that says, here's our phase 1 report. Now tell us, here's the work that we're needing to accomplish. Now give us a bid on doing that work for us.
Are we looking for any state funding to help us with that?
So the state funding we will look for when it comes to construction issues. So that's where we went out for state funding for the investigation, and they basically said this is not a project that you have state funding for. But they said if the application's still good once you start construction, once you get into a construction phase of it, then come back to us and we'll take a look at your application. That was through OES, which we've noticed bounces around from project to project and finally says we're out of money for this project. It was all hot and good when Orville was going, and then it all dried up when Sonoma was going and LA was on fire, and when there was a landslide in Montecito. So it seems like they keep bouncing their grant funds around. The other one is the Magalia, and that will be coming to you guys before we finalize that one, because I think there's some decisions that we need to make on that one. Looking at the spillway itself, there might be issues with the construction of it, but there's issues with more than just the construction of it. There's issues with the placement of it. There's issues with the dam itself. And is it time that we kind of expose our cards in a way and say, hey, we need to do more than just repair the spillway. We need to repair this whole dam. And maybe it's time that we stop throwing money and band-aiding something that we know is just going to be a wound 2, 3 years, 4 years down the line. So
that's where we hope politically to get some remuneration from this whole statewide dam thing. So, and I think it might be that's time in the works too. Slowly, if that's the decision this board makes, is to maybe get a cost estimate of what that's going to look at. Maybe not go all the way down the road of a design, but maybe get somebody to come in and go approximately how much money is it going to cost to repair this, and what does that look like?
The reports we've had earlier in its history, the dam is not repairable. The Bureau of Dam Safety has declared it one of the worst dams in the state for safety. And the only thing we've talked about in years past was building a new dam 60 feet up, stream from the old dam, and turning that dam into a highway and not having it a responsibility, but the new dam, new spillway, everything that goes with it. And we had estimates over the years between 10 to 20 million, which were just out of the back pocket sort of estimates. But
costs far more than that now.
Yes, but the dam is not, we can't repair it, sorry.
Can't. I think we need to get an expert opinion on that, because I've heard from others that there might be repair abilities out there nowadays that you might be able to do some type of repair.
We never found any, Kevin.
I'm just saying maybe that's something we look at.
We hope.
PG&E Miocene Canal, that we're going to talk about later on, so I'm not going to cover that through this district manager report. I do have to cover something, though, that came up since this has been published. that the town is planning to do an major Almond Street construction. So what they're doing is they're going to tear out all of Almond Street, 3,000 feet of Almond Street, and Keith can kind of talk more about this too. They're going to go and put all underground electrical. They're going to put 10-foot wide sidewalks. Is that right?
In some places.
And do a major overlay, like a real street there. We have steel pipe in that ground. We have found it that there is some leaks in there, that it's not in the best condition, and they're planning on doing the construction in July of 2019. That doesn't leave us a ton of time to get in before they get in. We did ask them to see if maybe we could partner with them to say, hey, can we get into whoever's doing all your construction, can we add our pipe in there, and then we can kind of partner with you? And they were not interested in that. So we're kind of out on our own on this one.
Why could we not be ready by next summer? Because you said 19, didn't you?
Yeah,
right.
That's why this is why we're talking about it.
Right.
So what we're looking at is that a timeline to get that thing done and we're probably going to have to be a contracted pipeline project. So it's going to have to be something that we contract out that our crews aren't going to be doing. We're already out there, and this year we're going to be on the Crestview. So that's where we've kind of already put our eggs in.
Right.
And we feel like a contractor would take probably approximately 4 months to get this accomplished. That would be all the pipe in and the services. We want to definitely get in there before they start any of their
absolutely.
About this fall, maybe? You're talking about?
So we're talking about
Possibly late fall, as soon as we can get somebody on board, maybe off and on through the winter, depending on whoever gets the job, and then getting right back on it early spring of 2019.
What size is that line out there?
It's going to replace an 8 with an 8.
8 with an 8.
I'm curious, why is the town not interested in partnering with PID to get this done at the same time?
Because they said that it's grant funded, and that they have all their paperwork already submitted, and they don't want to add our stuff into their paperwork. So and Neil asked for a sit down with them, and I think that was the quote. They just said no.
Really?
Okay.
So,
Really quick.
yeah.
Talk to your wife about that. Find
I'll
out what
talk
happened.
to my wife about it.
Very good.
So
That doesn't make any sense, does it?
We are probably going to go out for a design RFP to an engineering firm to design this, that you probably will see back in the next month or two, to get this thing designed. Because if we want to get this thing done in the fall, we got to get a design done. We got to get an RFP out to get bids.
Money to bid
And
for
we
it.
got to start popping.
Yeah. Can we use hydrant fund money for this project?
Partially only.
No, I don't think that it qualifies because I don't
It's
think
already
The last little bit.
I don't think there's hydrant issues. I don't think there's fire flow issues out there, is there?
No, and we're replacing like size with like size.
I see.
Oh, okay.
Where
No upgrades at all.
Country Club, where we're
Right.
going to be over here at Crestwood, we can't because of fire flow issues.
Right.
Correct.
Specifically.
Aren't there hydrants in that area that need
That
to be
gets used.
replaced?
We use the hydrant fund for those.
For those, yes, Cliff, but not
So-
for the pipeline project.
Yeah.
But so we would be involved in that project anyway.
So we use hydrant funds for any type of hydrants we put in. So those are
Right.
all 100% paid for out of the hydrant fund.
Right.
But that's just the hydrant, not
like
any of the
Crestview,
lines,
is it Crestwood?
Crestwood.
That is a 50-50 partnership for the whole thing.
But if we can't get the hydrants in, their project can't go forward, can it? Is that right? Well, that's a safety issue. So without the hydrants, if our scheduling does not permit us to replace those hydrants, the only way we can do it is if we work together with them on a time schedule.
Well, that's being sneaky, but okay.
That's worth looking at.
No comment. I hear what you're saying.
I will comment on it.
And like Kevin said, Neil, he tried a couple times to just have a sit down with Jim and I and Kevin and Neil to sit down to talk about just that. And it was It was no, we
Can't-
reported on our plan.
Can they put in hydrants without us?
What, huh?
Yeah, a contractor could have done it.
Not without authorization.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not without authorization through us.
So
But they could.
at the end of the day, we got to put those hydrants in.
Existing hydrants.
We have to
right?
authorize it.
Or authorize it, because if a contractor doesn't,
That's to
it
change
would
it
get
after the fact.
authorization through us via the
That
contractor.
authorization has to go through channels here, right?
Correct.
Okay. I think I see a way forward.
So that I wanted to really get you up to speed on, because that should have been part of this report, but it all kind of sped up real fast as we kind of went through our meeting the other day with Neil and about them not really wanting to sit down with us. And then we backed into a timeline because we don't want to be out there when they're out there. We want to get our stuff in before they're even tearing up a road. So that we had to back into a timeline, we backed into this timeline, and then that kind of put our RFP for design in pretty quick like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And of
That's
course,
it for
cough we're going to
The
deal with
district
later.
manager,
So,
That's right.
Yeah.
all right, thank you. Any questions from the public on this?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to back up to Director Jacobson's transparency comment. That's exactly the way that kind of verbiage needs to be said, and directly for those who may be trying to catch on to what's going on here. But you want to remember, as President Wendland said, part of the effort of the recall group was based on that lack of transparency, but also on the fact that there was no explanation how does this project go from $6 million to $10 million to $12 million to $15 million, and who knows what the upper limit is. Without an explanation, that lack of transparency had just as great a weight, plus the majority of the board backing a decision that had no other alternative. That was very confusing to many of those people. Without an explanation, how you get those 2 points across made no sense. And they said, let's throw the board out. I understand that. But at this point, to say, we didn't do it, we saved $12 million, that's what the public needs to understand. Director Wendland made a proposal that we not raise the rates as much as we could have in January because we didn't spend that much money. That kind of stuff makes sense. And it does have to get across to the public. And shame on her for not being here getting this down right. Thank you.
Thanks for keeping our feet to the fire. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ward.
Item number 6. Oh, anybody else wish to speak to anything on this? Thank you. Back to the board. Number 6.
Treasurer's memo? Is that me again? Okay. Do you have my treasurer's memo?
Oops, I should have said treasurer's memo, number 6.
Currently, we're at about 3 mil. 1.4 is restricted. 1.6 is unrestricted. Right now, we're kind of in the lowest trend of our revenue stream. You should start seeing the revenue popping back up. The one thing is on consumption, we're beating budget, which is good.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. So that's good. We're pretty close to right online budget. Expenses were right in line with our budgeting expenses, and most of our debt's been paid for already for the fiscal year. One thing is I'm doing the budget right now, so I'm going to start getting requests probably next week from all of the department heads on capital. And then we'll start getting together a budget committee or a budget session with the board to go over what we're looking at this current fiscal year. RFPs for auditing services came back. We'll have that on the agenda tonight. And that's about it.
Okay, I have 2 questions. One is the retirement plan audit. I just want to clarify my understanding. So the employees were being charged more for fees than they should have been.
Correct.
So we audited it and we found out what would make them whole. So in making them whole, did we include any loss of investment because they would have had less money to invest because they were paying more fees?
Correct.
Was that made whole?
Yeah, and so the calculation of returning the fees was simple.
Right.
It was, here's the wrong fee, here's the right fee, put it in, take it out. That was the easy part. The hard part was the loss of investment interest on those monies as they sat into their account. What FTJ did is they went back and looked at everybody's average return on their account from inception. So if you had 10% return on your monies from inception, they applied that to it every single month out of that year, and then they applied a factor that said, okay, it's been sitting in there for 36 months, therefore you should have been earning 10% every month, and you earn on that 10% every month, and then at the end of the day, that's what you're getting for that month, and they went down that factor, and that's how they did it. So they calculated that for us. They returned not only the fees, but the lost interest or gain loss on that. If a person had a negative number, then they basically zeroed it. They didn't take money away from that person.
Okay. Did the auditor then confirm those?
So that's what the auditor did. The auditor then looked at the numbers. They did their own calculation, and they did it based on what they felt was the most appropriate way to do it. Then they took and looked at FTJ's numbers and compared them, and also not only compared them, they looked at their philosophy to see if their philosophy was sound. And under their report, they felt like FTJ's was more favorable to the employees than what their conservative approach was based on their numbers that they had. And that if there was a discrepancy high-low, it was de minimis based on the IRS regulations that they relied on. And so, yes, so gain loss was returned to the employees on every one of the gain loss, or every one of the fees that was overcharged for that.
Thank you.
Yep. So does every employee cognizant of that? Every employee
I've tried to explain that to them over and over again on that. That was at the very beginning of this whole process about what was happening. And there was discussion about how FTJ was actually calculating it and if that was the appropriate figure. And we had one employee that actually argued that it wasn't the appropriate way, and they actually agreed with them. So they went back and recalculated it. Which was tough because you had multiple entries into your account based on different gain loss, which kind of confuse people. But at the end of the day, if you collapsed it down, they did comply with some of the arguments based on gain loss calculation.
Thank you, Ann.
Thank you.
And the employees were provided both reports, correct?
Right.
Okay.
And I have a question.
She had two things.
Yeah, my second question is page 62, the consumption revenue versus the draft budget consumption revenue.
Yeah.
Okay. So instead of totaling it all the way in the right-hand column, could you make that year to date so we know where we are year to date?
Sure.
Instead of you're adding 3 months of last year's with.
I add that it's so in April, May, and June. I just put what I expect budget. I put the budget in there.
Oh, okay. So that's your kind of projection of the budget.
Okay. But
okay.
I can do year to date on that. Sure.
And then it used to be the average. It seems to me it used to be like percent of budget as it went through, but now it says average. I don't understand. All of a sudden, I looked at this and I go, "What is this?" Excuse me. The average of what? What's the average at this bottom? Like 10.
It's average of 5 years of consumption data where we see our what percent of consumption revenue is collected in that month. So you can see So
the average for 5 years.
Yeah.
So is that relevant really to us?
Huh?
Is that relevant? Something we should know for 5 years?
Well, what I'm trying to show is that in December we expect to collect 4%, where in July we expect.
Oh! I see. For the month.
For the month.
Okay.
So at the end of if you add all those averages, that would be 100%.
Oh.
Okay.
That's how that.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. That makes sense.
I do have one question. Back to our prior comments before Ann's last question there. So all of us board members did receive sort of an open letter, I guess, from a concerned citizen about the employees and their investments. And so I want to be clear that it is the board's opinion that the employees have been made whole on this situation or not, and that is there or is there not still an ongoing lawsuit in regards to that?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't think that's on the agenda for board discussion on those things, but we can put it on the agenda for next time.
Okay.
Bill, questions? Mark, questions?
Nope. Thank you.
All right. Item number 6. Anybody from the public wish to speak to this?
We have to accept the treasurer's.
But anybody from the public? Okay. Then I would accept a motion, please.
I move we accept the treasurer's report.
Second somebody? Oh, I can second it. It's been moved and seconded that we accept the treasurer's memo. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Number 7, approval of checks. Approval of general fund check numbers 51676 through 51776 for the month of March 2018, totaling $511,977.43, and authorization of similar amount, allowing or adjusting for extraordinary budget or board approved items during the month of April. Y'all have any questions?
I have a comment, but Mark should go ahead.
Go ahead, Bill.
We spent how much money? 500,000,
511.
and we have reserves of a million. What? $1,654,000 is unrestricted in reserves. I don't think the reserves are enough, but I've said that before. I didn't look through the check register. I'm sorry, I didn't get my work done on that.
They're accruing slowly, but slowly.
Any questions?
I have no comments or questions.
I just had an easy question. I was just curious, why do we go down to Chico Immediate Care when we do the fiscals for the employees? Do we?
It's billed through Chico,
It's
but it's here.
Oh, it's the Paradise. Oh, okay,
built through
I thought they're
Chico.
running down the hill to get a physical.
So one on
Okay.
Dunley and Clark.
Okay,
They
thank
just
you.
call it Chico.
Yeah. Why?
I don't know.
Anything below PID is Chico.
For the same reason that Chico prints the Paradise Post.
Yeah, that's it. Really.
Okay, thank you.
I do have one question on page 70. Last month I had said hopefully we're finished with checks to FTJ, and voila, 18,000. Hopefully this is the end still, yeah? Or again?
Yeah. Where's that one at?
Page 70, or
Vendor, FTJ Corp, 18,000.
That was the last one.
Yeah.
I thought we were done in March, but we did one more last one because our blackout date moved because we were having a little bit of trouble. So we had to move the blackout date.
Bumped it.
So we posted that, and then we blacked out, and then it went over to ICMA.
Yep, ICMA is over on the right column and it looks good. Any other questions, comments? Anybody from the public wish to speak to this? Accept a motion, please.
I'll make a motion that we approve the general fund check numbers 516.
You could just say as read.
As read.
I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any it's moved 5-0. Forgot the word there. Okay, number 8, legal report. Emily.
Most of my items are on for closed session. We spoke a little bit last time about the Public Records Act. I don't have anything new to report on that other than I can confirm that conference before the judge is still set for the 20th, and hopefully we'll get a little further in identifying the documents that they catalog as privileged. But other than that, we've got plenty on the plate for tonight. So.
Okay, thank you. 9, no unfinished business, so we'll move right to 10. And as per several people's request, we are pulling 10F up to the beginning so that these people can leave. So, Kevin?
Yeah. So, Phil Kelly actually contacted myself about a project that he was trying to and actually Director Wentland also contacted me on this, about maybe contacting Chico State to do a project based on sprinklers on the top of rooftops during wildland fires, and what the advantages are and what the capacity level of the district could handle that also. So I'll actually turn it over to Phil, and Phil can...
Please come forward to the mic if you could, please. That way the public can hear you too.
Wow. 23 years since I was officially before this board of directors.
And then you sat elsewhere, huh?
And I don't want to push you through life any faster than you're already going, but if you're not retired already, when you can, do it. It's the best job I've ever had.
Just to let you, Phil, just to let you know, the board got.
We have the full presentation.
Dr. Webster's email, and so
we have reviewed it.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I won't read it over to you again then. When I built my house, when Helen, in fact, that's the next important thing I have to do. Introduce my wife, Helen.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us.
When we built our home in 1971, we asked the contractor to have the plumber install rainbirds up on the roof. 2 of them were installed with plumbing too, and ways of draining that plumbing so that it could be drained and not freeze in the winter. I've never had to use it, thank God, although we've dodged bullets more than once here in Paradise, most recently October 8th of last year. And I'm aware that neither the town fire department nor PID want us using water when they need it for fire protection. But I believe that there's a time, I'll call it a dead time for better choice of words, when water is available to citizens to put on their roofs efficiently before the fire department needs it, before the fire gets close enough to us. And that part of this project that I hope Chico State will be allowed to do for us will determine when that point is. I did start contacting engineering departments at Chico State, and Jack responded, and you've read his response. And I think, Jack, if you would be willing to take it over from there, thank you.
Well, Jack's getting up. If I might mention something briefly. Mr. Kelly contacted me on this, and we had a rousing discussion. And I had mentioned to him, he was saying, why can't this be done, or why can't PID make some kind of allowance for having sprinklers on the roof? And I had told him that during the 2008 fires, as a volunteer and police service person, I was on my motorcycle right out on the front lines helping get the fire department to the various sites that they were missing. And I had seen on more than, I'm not sure, 3 or 4 roofs, sprinklers on the roof. And generally what accompanies any fire is high winds. And the people that had their sprinklers on their roof, it was going straight up in the air, going to absolutely zero. It was just evaporating in the air. And so at that time I told Mr. Kelly, great idea, why don't we pursue something that's actually would potentially work? And that's what precipitated this conversation.
Great. Yeah, so my name is Jack Webster. I'm a fairly new faculty down at in the civil engineering department down at Chico State. I'm actually from Quincy initially, so I got to come kind of full circle back to Chico by way of UNR for a bachelor's and master's degree in civil engineering, and then a PhD at the University of Colorado Boulder.
Wow.
Really, my background is in water, at least my PhD background in research is in water quality and chemistry more than water resources, and I was kind of excited to see the water quality issues of the reservoir, but that's a whole other discussion. Most of my research is actually on wildfire, actually, and I've been looking at wildfire impacts to water quality and to water treatment. And that's pretty much another story for another day, too. But I am interested in wildfire, and I've been tracking the data on wildfire in the West, and certainly there's increasing size and severity of wildfire across the western United States, and you all know that a community like this is definitely at high risk. So I think a system like this is kind of an innovative and would be a really neat thing to do, but there would potentially be some downfalls to it. One of them would be the use of water by the public in a time when you need that water for the fire department. I think you kind of alluded to that earlier. If the town is about to be evacuated, which I know that it has been before, and all the residents turn on their sprinkler systems and hit the road, whatever that window of time is may or may not matter because there won't be anybody there to turn off the sprinklers, right? So, thinking through this a little bit, And to be honest, I haven't spent a ton of time thinking about this project yet, but I certainly would. There would have to be some way to turn the system off. So it would have to be a system that has had some thought and has access by the fire department or something. Maybe not just everybody puts sprinklers on their roof, right? I think moving forward, what would be really neat is to just look at what the capacity of the system is for putting a system like this, installing a system at least in some parts of the town, right? How long could you run sprinklers? Are there ways to turn off the sprinkler system? Could the fire department have like a master valve somewhere? And that would require dual plumbing. And so there's a lot of complications that go into something like this. But to kind of finish up here, I would be happy to have some students look into this. And one of the great things about the university is that it's pretty cheap labor, oftentimes free. So what I offered in my email is to possibly teach a class in pressurized pipe flow over next fall, if that fits within your timeline, and I can get some students working on at least doing the initial assessment here. If we can come up with a sprinkler system that delivers the water well, and we do some calculations and we find that there is enough water to at least allow for parts of the town to install a system like this, then maybe I can give you my report and we can move forward.
A couple of questions I don't expect to be answered. United States Forest Service research on fire, they certainly have probably done some work on this, I would think. And the key one in California is a UCLA fire lab who's done 50 years of research on wildfires and temperatures and fuel reduction studies and all that. I would think would be another resource for you that would keep the costs down just by doing and that's excellent student work.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of research that could go into this. Certainly the Forest Service has a lot of data on wildfire. And one of the other points I made in my email, and just for those who haven't read it, I mean, even if we have a great sprinkler system for everybody's house, and it doesn't do a lick of good if somebody's got 2 years worth of firewood stacked against the side of their house under the eaves, right? And so, it has to be kind of combined with other reasonable approaches to reducing the risk of spreading wildfire through the city.
We have no money to help you, and we'd like to have it done and approved by summer for the fire season.
Yeah, I figured as much.
Yeah. No pressure.
No, so, and if you want to move forward with this, we can talk in some more detail, maybe via email or something, to come up with a plan. But I don't want to take up too much time here, everybody.
I have a question for Keith. Do we have our distribution system mapped with AutoCAD or water? Do we have it already? Okay.
Do you have any WaterCAD problems? Do you run like WaterCAD or something to look at pressures?
Well, that would be more. I don't know. I can't speak too much on that. Neil will be the one to answer that. Our engineer. Between what he's got and what we know, and it might take a few sit downs, but we could certainly give you information that I'm pretty sure that you would need to know. Pressures, volumes, flows. I mean, that's one of the biggest issues there, regardless, besides what Dan said as far as evaporation, is some of our mains in this town are very small. Some of them are low pressure, others are high pressure, and everybody turning things on at one time, as you're probably well aware, nobody's going to have new water. And there's other places where there would be plenty of it. It just depends on the demand of the system and where it's at.
Yep.
We actually had experience in responding to this exact situation on 2 occasions. We kept pretty good notes.
Okay. It sounds like that would be a great...
I have a good answer for you.
Okay.
So, being the creative guy that I am, it's an opportunity for you or somebody. You create a water meter with a pressure differential shutoff. And what happens is we can use our rooftop sprinklers until the pressure gets down to a certain point, which indicates
automatic shut off.
We don't have enough water, and it automatically shuts those water meters off.
There's your claim.
Yeah,
Patent that tomorrow, and there's your claim to fame, and
seriously,
buy an island
why would
somewhere.
That not work?
Well, let's build it.
You need a TA.
I'm willing to spend some of my money to have my existing system retrofitted with a timer that I hit when I'm leaving town. It's going to have that system run for whatever the experts have told me it should run, half an hour or an hour. Right now my system will put out 12 gallons a minute. And I've offered my home and my system to Jack to use in his research and design work.
Thank you.
Good. Yeah. Thank you.
I could probably speak for the board when I say a whole lot of money we probably are not interested in investing, but if we have communication from you, we might be willing to accept some small expenditures.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of say that?
Yeah, I would say that if we did, and I'm sure that water meter actually exists.
It does.
And as a motivation for a residence that wants to put a sprinkler system like that to protect their home in a wildfire emergency, they would pay to have that meter installed, and that would give them the privilege of putting the sprinkler system up.
How good are the batteries?
It wouldn't work on that.
Speaking from experience.
I would suggest Jeff to consider in his work, and that is an estimate of cost to retrofit existing homes that have nothing on the roof now. Because not all of us are going to spend the money to save our home by spending money on it.
That's correct.
We should be willing to, but not everybody will.
They won't.
And that will have a bearing on how many people turn on when the fire is approaching.
Right.
I'd bet you the insurance companies would lower your rate appreciably if you did that.
I'll tell you that my insurance carrier is giving me a very small premium discount because of the 2 rainbirds I have on my roof now.
Makes sense.
And I was told it would be okay to say it's farmers.
Keith, I'll get together with you next week and we'll design this water meter.
So I think going forward, I'll work with Jack. Jack, if whatever request of information you need from us, I'm sure it's going to be some distribution type stuff, maybe a sit down, capacity of the system. We also are going through an increase in capacity right now with the current project that we're increasing double our capacity of one of our tanks sites. So that's again for fire flow issues. So that'll work into that same type of thing. So. Perfect. You have my email, I have yours. You just email me whatever information, or when you're ready to sit down, just let me know and we'll make it work.
Okay, great. Thank you,
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Phil.
thank you, Kellys. Anybody have a question on this issue? Okay, moving right along back to 10A.
Did you want us to take any action?
I think
You're free to go.
Or any direction or action?
Kevin is our.
That
your
was an
verbal,
action item, yeah.
Kevin, your verbal commitment, that's good enough?
Yeah.
You want any action on this?
No action needed,
We're not
just based
spending
on
money
that
or
there's no
anything.
money being spent.
Okay.
There's no money, yeah.
Thank you.
10A.
10.
I'd like to address this.
Oops. Which one?
Right,
Oh, I'm sorry.
boat launch ramp number 1.
Okay, we're talking about it now, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I would like to have it tabled, if possible. I was talking to Kevin, not Kevin,
Jim?
me and my names, the Irishman with Sierra Pacific on the phone this afternoon.
Here.
And in talking, we felt that we needed to get some things straightened out here. There's some
We agree that we were looking the conditions before we proceed. We're finding CEQA issues with proceeding forward with this,
Right,
based on that we don't see that there's an exemption to the CEQA work, and we have a project that we potentially have out there that would require this work to be done, that CEQA would want us to kind of...
In the committee, that meeting, Kevin wasn't there. And basically, we ran through a thing for around $13,000 thing here that we would do, and we talked about the difference in saving money and so forth. And I saw the CEQA report that you've turned out, and Jim Passanisti's report. And basically, we need it to go back to the committee and discuss it rather than here tonight and take up a half hour. Where the CEQA issue, actually the size of the issue came up. Jim Passanisti finding a smaller thing than our Sierra Pacific Forester found in size of the parking lot, and several things are out of whack right now. So rather than discussing something that's going to have a lot of holes in it, I'd like to table it back to the committee, and we may even have a special committee report to go over all these details. It will take some time to assume, and it's Children's Day or Kids' Day Saturday, and that assumed all the rest of the time for the committee. And so I think it would be...
I'll second that.
So Kevin, you're in agreement with that?
Yep, I think there's issues there. Hopefully those issues also will be fleshed out a little bit with the report back from the Boating and Waterways on the grant itself.
Thank you.
Because it's just being tabled, no action needed? No. 10B. Mr. Manager and Jim. However you proceed to do that.
So in the report you see that we're needing to remove how many trees? 7?
A bunch of stuff.
There are some different areas. So we have one at the corporation yard, the east boundary corporation yard, large ponderosa pine, some black oaks, and a maple tree over here on our rental property, and then D tank has 9 trees total. A couple of them are large size, the others are medium size.
I'm sure you saw it. Yes, you got that.
So
I don't think any of us, we've all had a chance to read it. Do you have any significant questions?
Discrepancy between the
initial
costs, yeah.
There is.
I walked the demonstration garden this afternoon before this meeting. Then that was the first time this mailer came out, yesterday or the day before. First time I was aware of any problem there. I think it needs to go to the garden committee, because in trimming these trees and possibly falling some, that we've had damage done before with different things in the garden that we had to correct. And I think it would be excellent if it went to the garden committee to approve this part of it. And there may be quicker than we hope. If the weather stays the way it is for another 5 days, we'll be planning, and we can talk about it as a garden committee. It was not brought to the committee's attention.
Actually, this was generated through the garden committee, but you weren't at that meeting. I'm sorry.
Okay.
But it was in the minutes. And
I guess it's my turn to say it didn't, but when I went and looked at it today and saw what is being requested, I'm going, some of the limbs and so forth, the stage we're at on that garden, they might even need to be brought down by rope and not allowed to fall into the garden and destroy some of the work we've done.
Wouldn't the problem be even worse?
yeah, the contractor would be. Yeah.
Develop the garden.
I'm saying we put it off till we have we have the details on how the work is going to actually be done.
Why could we not proceed in just that one small portion of it be subject to the committee?
That's all
because
I'm
this
asking. I'm not asking about any of the
because the rest of it, it'd sure be nice to be able to proceed.
They'll pull those trees out with damage to the fence. They will not damage the garden area.
Yeah.
They know what they're doing. Every company there that bid on them said the same thing. The conversation with everyone was exactly the same.
Yeah.
They can rope things out of there. They can pull things out. Absolutely. They don't have any issues with that at all.
And if they do damage, they're insured to repair and replace.
Correct.
Yeah.
They're all insured. And of course, you can see the low bid there. We've had work done by Sierra Tree Care in the past numerous times. Same with North Valley Tree Care.
Sure.
They're all very.
Okay, I don't see where a tree needs to be cut walking through it, and I have an access to a certified tree specialist, arborist, to inspect the trees. I don't expect that the delay will be very long at all. It might change some of the specs you're asking for, and I'd like to have the committee look at it. Some new woodwork has just been laid on the ground by a volunteer. I didn't even know it was there till tonight. 2x4s treated, and it's underneath some of those trees, limbs you're talking about. And we can't put any heavy equipment into that garden at all. Not even a pickup truck at this stage.
They're all next door. Isn't that what it says?
Yeah, the ones for removal are between the garden and the thing.
Yeah,
but
they're
there
between
are branches that
between
in
the garden
itself.
and the house. Yeah,
that's true.
I'd like to move forward with this. I don't think we need to get involved in the minutia of tree trimming. That's my opinion.
I agree. I think that the request before us was which vendor to select, not whether or not to do it. So it's on the agenda for us to select the appropriate vendor, and that's what we need to do.
but we sure can have the garden committee review and make sure that there is no damage done. I don't have any problem with that, and I don't think that anybody else would either.
You mean after the work is done?
No.
As the work is
being done? Right. Just make sure the garden committee...
As the work is being done?
Correct,
Oh.
Yeah. Because I want to move forward, too, not hold it up another month.
Yeah, just maybe with the caveat that whatever vendor we select, that their special care is taken with the demonstration.
Caution in the garden area, yeah. Real caution.
Just to let you know, we're going to go by the tree care's schedule, not the demonstration garden's schedule.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're going to schedule them when they can get in there and get it done as quickly as possible. If the garden committee deems to call a committee meeting during that time period, so be it.
That's all I'm asking for.
Yes,
Thank you.
that can be done.
Okay.
Yeah. Any for public?
Yes, thank you. There was an inspection from the committee while you were gone to that meeting, Bill. Chuck, Bell, and I, and Ann looked, and then Jim later joined us there. And looking at it, our concern was that one larger branch that if it were to come down while we had public here, that would be a significant danger. Other than that, the smaller branches would be falling on where our planted area would be, especially closest to the fence. And if you look right now, you can see some that are over 1.25 inches in diameter and fairly long that are fallen in that area.
Yeah.
So right now it's a good thing we have not planted yet. They would be damaged at this point. So the plan, as it was described and what we understood, if they work from the property next door without putting any heavy equipment on our garden, this would all be removed in a safe manner and give us a straightforward, open, clean area to be able to get in there with no fear of branches coming down on top of us. So I think that the three of us that were discussing it at the time thought this would be the best option, and frankly what we've come up with really would work.
Okay. Thanks for the clarification.
Thank you, Ward.
Do we have any, does anybody have any experience with these particular vendors to give us a recommendation? Is there a reason why we shouldn't take the lowest bid?
Well, we have experience with Sierra Tree Care, and it has been excellent. We've had work done with North Valley Tree Care. They've been excellent. About trees, we have not had any actual work done by them, although we've accepted some bids from them before. M&S Wesley was
out of the ballpark.
I think we should use them.
Yeah.
So Sierra Tree Care with the low bid, Cliff, Sierra Tree Care, they're very competent. They know exactly what they're doing.
See, they are the lowest. So
I don't have Sierra Tree Care.
I think if you've had excellent results with them and they're the lowest bid,
by all means use them.
I see no reason why we don't authorize using Sierra Tree Care. And I'll make a motion that we give that to Sierra Tree Care.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right, moving right along. 10C.
Okay. I always like to make sure that I give Emily a task that she has to really do for the first time. And this was actually, I gave her something she'd never done before.
Oh.
Retract a motion.
We're undoing a resolution by a resolution. I'm actually going to hand this one over to Keith. If you remember, I think it was in November last year, we surplused this Jeep.
Remember?
We bought the Gator. And through this process and through Keith kind of brainstorming, they came up with an idea to maybe actually use this Jeep for a process in the yard. And to do that, to keep the Jeep, we have to unsurplus the Jeep. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Keith.
Whoever makes the motion, make sure and read it so we get it complete.
So, there was a couple guys. There was one particular, and it was Sanjay, one of our crew leaders, that came up with the idea because with the leak detection, which you'll be hearing more about as I told you later, as you well know, it's very expensive equipment. There's 2 suitcases that hold the leak detection equipment. We have a device called an LD12 that's in a case for listening that we already own. And we have a line locator. This stuff is really expensive, and it needs to stay as dry as possible. Not saying we can't do anything in the rain, but it needs to be kept clean. Well, with the Jeep, he had brought up the idea, hey, it would be nice if we could just have a designated vehicle that could be kept under lock and key. And even right now, with the way we're doing it with the crew truck or whatever truck's available, it's coming inside with us because that's about the safest place in the courtyard. But because it's a 1 to 2 man operation when they're out looking and listening for those leaks, having that big truck or taking up a crew truck, not that we can't, we've been doing it. We thought if we could keep that Jeep and have that as our leak detection vehicle to keep this equipment in, and no matter who is doing the surveying, that is the truck, the vehicle that they use. Thought we'd have a great place to store it. It's clean, it's dry, it locks up.
Makes total sense to us.
And if we could keep it, we could certainly utilize it just for that specific purpose.
Yeah.
So that's...
Is it in good mechanical shape?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Yeah, we sold the other one that wasn't bad, but it was less. No, it's in fine shape.
And this one's paid for?
Yep.
Yeah, that's a biggie.
Yep.
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
We actually, in approving our budget to buy that the Gator, we took into consideration selling that Jeep and using the proceeds toward that purchase. So that's my one concern. And then the second one is, it seems like overkill to have a specific vehicle just for $30,000 worth of equipment, and I wouldn't ever want to store it in that vehicle. I'd want to store it inside. Just let me finish the sentence, because I understand where you're going. But couldn't you spend some money, a lot less money, on a FEMA box or something to keep it safe in the truck or wherever you're using it, or the cab or whatever?
Well, yes, we could, depending on which truck was available based on other work that we would need for that day. Right now, they're using Unit 7. Sometimes they might be in Unit 3. Mm-hmm. Yes, it's possible, and we could do that. That's the way they've been doing it now. We just felt that since we had it, and if you guys would agree to it, to be able to have it in one particular one, it just seemed to make sense, because that would be about the only thing that we would use. That would be the primary purpose for that equipment being in it. As far as the equipment being inside, it comes in now. Okay. Absolutely.
Good.
Absolutely, because we are much more secure locked inside the courtyard than anything that's in the vehicles, and it is our rule that locators and things of value like that are not left in back of trucks, and sometimes not even in cabs. They come inside. So that's the practice, and that's what we would continue to do.
Is it in the meter shop?
Not necessarily, but it's in the building. Sometimes it's right there in the break room. It's inside the locked building with our motion detectors and our alarm system.
Can I add something to Ann's question too?
Sure.
So there's 2 things that we were talking about that we considered, and one of them is the service trucks. So we have 3 service trucks. When Keith said Unit 3, Unit 7, those are large trucks. They have a utility bed on them, a service bed, boxes, tools in them. They're not made for setting up that equipment in the back of that. It's an open bed. So the idea was to take that Jeep and build a box in the back that you could safely carry that equipment and have the correlator actually sitting on the box, so when the lid opens to the back of that Jeep,
It's still protected.
it's protected right there. So it would, from that standpoint, it would function well. The other side is the service trucks are very large, and when we go out and we do leak detection, we're bouncing from one place to the next, and we're often parking on the side of the road. So limiting our size and our impact from that in the neighborhoods is beneficial as well.
And so there's no other vehicles that are smaller that you could use?
No.
Not really. That's a bad.
Not the size of the Jeep. Most of the crew vehicles they're larger.
What about your wife's car?
Yeah.
Okay, Keith.
It's stops.
We honestly don't have anything
Okay.
that would.
I appreciate that additional information. Thank you.
Do you know the fair market value of the Jeep that we would assume we're going to get?
What Clint was thinking, in the $8,000 range.
Okay. So just, I think that's important information for you guys.
What's the annual cost of keeping a vehicle in inventory? What are we talking about?
It's minimal.
And Jerry Brown's DMV hike didn't
It's
alter
tires.
it. I don't know if you knew that.
Every couple of years. It's probably $200 a year sometimes.
Oh, really? So
We don't put a lot of mileage on them. So.
basically nothing.
Nothing.
Okay.
It's nothing to keep it in.
Okay.
From a maintenance standpoint.
Yeah.
I asked him about DMV, and because it's public utility, there is no. You don't. So
Good to know.
Well, I think if you asked me to buy another vehicle for that, I'd say poor planning, and I'd say no. But I think if you have a surplus vehicle and you're going to auction it off for $5,000 to $8,000, and it's going to leave that equipment that we just approved you to purchase that is delicate and needs to be protected. If it's going to put it more at risk, I think it's a good move.
I do too. I agree.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Discussion from the public?
Yes, thank you. I see this as a PR gold mine. The leak detection equipment is out there on this thing. It's for leak detection, big bold letters, saving water for paradise, finding your leaks and fixing them. It's a PR gold mine.
Here we are.
You come up with the design. How about that?
Yeah. Yeah, we should get a decal down the side. I like that.
That's a great idea.
I just want to make the comment, Ward, now we can see why you became Man of the Year at the Elks Lodge this year.
Anybody else from the public? Back to the board for a decision unless you got further discussion.
Well,
please do read it because we need to cover resolution.
Okay, on page 81. I move to adopt resolution number 2018-04, negating the declaration of surplus property and declaring that the 2008 Jeep Wrangler unit number 54 shall no longer be considered surplus property and will be retained for district use.
I'll second that.
Any questions further? All those in favor?
Roll call.
Oops, it's roll. Thank you, because it's resolution.
It's a
yep,
roll call.
it's resolution.
Director Sewell?
Yes.
Director Rice?
Yes.
Director Jacobson?
Yes.
Director Pello?
Yes.
President Whittle?
Aye. Okay, thank you. 10D.
So we currently have an open meter service position.
Good night, Keith, Jim.
Thank you.
And we are looking to fill that position. Looking at the job description, there is a requirement in there that we would like to kind of get rid of because we've had requirements for job descriptions before that have got us in. They weren't pleasant. And so what we're looking for is for the board to approve the only change to be that the job description has a requirement to obtain a D1 certificate and a backflow prevention tester certificate within 18 months of hire date.
Okay.
Just to let you know, when you guys after you guys approve this, we do have to meet and confer with the union on this too. So just because you approve it doesn't mean it's set in stone. We have to make sure that they and we're going to do that on Tuesday.
I got a question for you on this.
Are they going to have a problem with that because they may have people they feel are qualified for that position that have that certification now? Or
no one in the district has that current certificate. The only ones that do are in this position currently. So no one outside of this position has that certificate.
And it's actually making the requirements less stringent. You have 18 months to get it. You don't have to have it to have the job.
Oh, no, I get that.
Mark.
Yeah, I just have a question. To me, it looks, I'm reading this job description, it looks old. And it's based upon an old mechanical meter. Okay? And now we've got electronic meters. To me, this is an opportune time to rewrite the entire job description. And I realize the union has to get involved in that. They have to get involved in these changes anyway. I was going to try to get some job descriptions from other agencies. I just didn't have time to do it.
So I'll give you what our plan is.
Okay.
We're going into negotiations. This position will be one that we are going to look at changing the job description, but in previous negotiations, there was more that they were looking for than just a job description change. And so I think it's going to take more of a negotiations. What we're trying to do is kind of get this taken care of and get somebody hired in this position so that it's filled before we go back and we are going to review this job description within negotiations.
Okay. Well,
thanks for
the
clarification.
This job description will be further vetted through that. But there's other things that it'll take a lot longer.
But you want to hire somebody for a job that we don't have an accurate job description yet for?
Well, they currently are. They do. There is automated meter reading systems in there, but we do have mechanical meters still.
True. But I mean, it would be a good time to update it. That's what I was thinking.
And we're going to.
Okay.
That answer your question? Yes.
Well, I'm just curious. When do you plan on putting this out?
As soon as they give us the thumbs up.
As soon as we give you the thumbs up.
They do.
They give me the
as soon as union.
After we prove it goes to them.
But I mean, but we're talking before the next board meeting, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was going to say, otherwise we've got time. We could rewrite that and bring it back.
So, are we planning? You're saying we're planning on looking at all of our job descriptions at some point here? Is that what you're saying?
Slowly and surely. But
not just this one, but
this
potentially
one will
others.
Definitely be on there. But I know the last time this was presented, there was range changes to this job description. That I would like to handle inside of negotiations. So that's where I'm trying to kind of say, like, there's more to it than just changing a job description thing in there. They're looking for more that I feel like is more appropriate handled in negotiations. But from operational standpoint, we want to kind of get somebody in this position so we can move forward.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions? Any questions from the public? Bring it back to the board. Action, please, somebody.
Yeah, I move to accept the changes in the Meter Serviceperson job description.
I'll second.
Is there a
Bill seconded.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. 10E.
Annual auditing services. I sent out about 12 of these RFPs out to firms from City of Orange to Reading, to even do a firm in Paradise. So I tried to blanket the whole region. I only received three responses back. All three responses, though, were from quality firms that had a lot of experience in water districts. And so going through their resumes, through their proposals, all were very qualified. All the references checked out on the lowest bid. Everybody was very thrilled with their service they got from them. They have very good reference checks from their other water agencies out there, and so I recommend we take the lowest bid.
Okay.
It's amazing how close they were compared to our previous thing, 27 to 11, 2.5 times the price.
What happens when you have when your expenses are open to public review? So they have an idea of what you paid last year. So nothing's hidden. Yeah, they're very close to what we paid last year.
Well, I move to accept the proposal from Fechter and Company for auditing services for fiscal year 2017-2018 through 2019-20 for a not to exceed amount of $48,000, $16,000 per year, and direct the interim district manager to execute the professional services agreement following review by legal counsel.
I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Just to let you know, Fechter is out of Sacramento.
Okay. Yes. All right. Do you want to take a couple-minute break or not?
I'll do the committee
Nope.
reports.
Okay, we'll continue. Committee reports.
You want to take a break?
Normally I do, but
We're almost done.
I got two reports to give here.
Yeah.
But I don't have to work. See, because Ann took the minutes for the demonstration garden, and
we know
Mark
she
takes the one for the lake committee.
And they're both fairly succinct and quick, so good.
I get to get informed with everybody else.
Ad hoc demonstration. You just got bumped the
Ann,
responsibility, and
well, Ann writes the minutes. So.
that's right.
Actually, I think we've had another. Oh, this is our latest. We've had two. This is the latest meeting, and we just had a few decisions to make. It actually was a quick meeting on different signage and just progress on the archway, the plaque, and all that's going on.
I'll point out one thing. Ann has done most of the work that's reported in this meeting, and I tried to cancel the meeting because I didn't think we had enough to do. We couldn't plant anything. I want to plant plants. And so Ann did most of the work in the report. Actually has done an excellent job going out, contacting vendors to get free things and getting information. So
thank you, Ann.
Doing a great job.
Hired a truck, too, to...
Yeah, I hired a truck for tomorrow.
Start charging us storage, right?
Hired a truck for tomorrow.
Yeah.
What are you renting?
Donated truck.
Oh, donated truck.
The driver, though, might be expensive.
Yeah, right.
Any questions about that? Okay, number 2, Administration and Personnel Committee. Cliff and I met. No decisions made. We'll be dealing with that further this evening. Number 3, Paradise Recreation Committee. Mark?
Oh, Bill, do you want to go over it?
No, you actually wrote the minutes, didn't you?
All right. Just a water supply update. Paradise Lake is still full. Jim Passanisi reported on that for us and talked about the inundation studies that are underway. And project updates, Greg stated the bulletin board's up, and apparently there's a handrail that still needs to be installed on the handicap pathway. He noted that lake permit sales are up. CCC crews were working on clearing 4 acres of PID land off of Lucretia Road, which is right next to the lake there. Shaded fuel project still continuing. There's going to be some more work up near Skyway and Magalia there to clear out some camps, apparently that have homeless camps that are. North Lake boat launch project. Jim noted we're still waiting, but we did hear about the letters in the mail apparently from the Division of Boating and Waterways. And then, of course, the tree removal that Kiernan talked about, offered that to us at that meeting. Annual Kids Fishing Day trout plant was happened on Sunday. I put in here Mickey Wood planned on flying the drone, but they weren't able to fly it and get pictures because of the rain. It was raining hard.
Sorry.
So they didn't get the photos.
That's
for that.
too bad.
Blue Team Realty is going to have a booth at Kid Fishing Day for kids to paint fish. We're going to have a PID director's booth for directors that want to attend.
Mark and I are going to be involved because we're the committee, and somehow we can't get out of the picture booth. So I tried, but
right. And then Greg noted that Paradise High School JV baseball team members will be volunteering to help at Kids Fishing Day, so that's great.
That's neat.
Yeah, and we're going to give them a day pass as remuneration, I guess you might say, for helping. And that's about it. Next meeting's May 15th.
I would like to add to the directors and the management that as many of you should come for, if nothing more than a couple of hours, and see what's going on and meet the public and maybe even get your picture taken. I don't know.
Hey, I prefer having my picture appear nowhere.
I agree.
Yeah. It's already in the post office, Dan.
Yeah. Missing that. You know?
Thank you very much, Mark. An excellent job.
I would assume that most of you are going to try to be there, and you're going to be up there fishing?
No, I'll be out of town.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, that's right. I remember you saying that. Oh, I had planned on being there all day long, but this guy over here, fortunately, it's Love Paradise Day, and one of the first big projects of Love Paradise is at the Senior Center. And my first obligation is there because of what they're going to be involved with. And so I will be up, but it's going to be probably in the area of, I don't know, 2 o'clock or something. I'm not sure.
I can't be there because in our pond we pet our fish. They're family.
Oh, we understand your situation.
Fish are family.
I think you mentioned that before. That's right.
It goes against the whole.
I have to go home every night.
Yeah, the happy wife, happy life thing. Huh?
If your wife got there and actually saw how these kids respond to the catching the big fish in the family, she might be impressed. But nobody cooks them or eats them.
You would be impressed if you came to our pond and saw them petting and hand feeding a 3-foot-long catfish.
All I can say is you must live in have a very good security system, and you're talking about this public.
Yes, Ward. Looks like you're hopping to get up.
Yes, about Kids Fishing Day. Something I would like to see, because being the old recycler that I am, is how well we are doing collecting cans and bottles to turn in to help pay for the fish. And I'd like to see it in Water Talk every year, just to remind people, hey, this is part of how we pay for the fish. I've spoken to a lot of, I'm at a lot of different groups, and I bring this up. It's kind of like, it's a very simple thing to do. You can turn them in down the street, you can turn them in at Cove, and for a nickel a piece, eventually you're going to catch up and pay for some fish. How many people are actually doing it?
We've started.
I did.
Now, but what you do is you turn the can in, get your money, and then turn the money into PID. Is that how it's done?
No. You just say, credit this to Kids Fishing Day.
And that's done all of the local...
Yeah, Cove.
Because my wife asked me, and I said, I assume you get the money. But
yeah, last year I stood in line waiting to do that down at American Way. Mm-hmm. I haven't seen any action over at Cove, but I would just like us to account for it,
yes,
and be able to document that in Water Talk so people are reminded, hey, this is something you need to plan on every year. Save up your cans and bottles. In March, you turn them in for Kids Fishing Day.
Which
We know,
locations
Kevin,
can
how
you
much
do
money
that
has
at?
been?
Or?
You can do it at American Way, NRWS,
Okay.
and just say, I want this to be donated towards Kids Fishing Day.
None of the other recycling.
Or to Cove, which is the other recycler in town.
Is that the one up by
Wagstaff and Skyway?
Yeah.
No,
It's
Wagstaff
on
and Skyway.
Just past Wagstaff, yeah.
Okay.
So instead of getting your nickel back for a can, you donate it to PID and buy a fish, or part of a fish.
I got an idea. Why don't we at the Senior Center? Let's talk about this later. Let's put a container out there that says Kids Fishing Day, and we'll just save all year long. Because the Senior Center generates tons of it. So let's talk about it later.
Go.
Thank you. Okay. The director's comments.
Thanks for attending today, the audience, the members of the public. Appreciate it. Thank you.
No comment from me?
Well,
no comment?
I have one comment. It sounds like PID and the town need to develop a better relationship. And generosity starts at home, and I'm going to make it my mission to find out why. Seriously, I mean tongue-in-cheek, but I'm going to find out why there seems to be this disconnect between the town and PID.
Yeah.
We need to work together more on this, because seriously, that issue on Almond Street, that development, I'd like a better answer as to why they don't want to work with us.
Actually, over the years, the relationship has been very positive, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know why this one kind of slipped, because way back when I was on the council, we started this.
I'm going to make it my job to find out what's going on that, and I'll report back to everybody at our next board meeting or before.
Thank you. Bill, any comments? Neither do I have any. Okay, closed session coming up, and we will take a few-minute break before we enter over there. Enough people here for me to read these? No, you can read them, since please.